I call this meeting of the Granbury Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that the meeting has been duly called, and that notice of the meeting has been provided in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551. At this time, we will adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections. 551.071, private consultation with the board attorney. 551.072, discussion of purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. And 551.074, discussion of officers, employees, and personnel matters. The time is now 5:01, and we will adjourn into closed session. We are now reconvened in open session. If I could have your attention, please. We are now reconvened in open session. The time is 6:03. Mrs. Townsend, will you please open us with the invocation?
Please bow your head with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the day you've given us. We thank you for the children that you have in our district. We thank you for the adults that care for these children. Lord, I ask you to be with us today, to give us wisdom for each decision we make, and may those decisions be made not only in human wisdom, but in your wisdom. And I pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mrs. Townsend. At this time, we have youngsters from Bronner here for the pledges. So,
And I'm Sandy Ruiz. I'm the assistant principal at Bronner. We have brought our student council officers with us, and these 4 kiddos are 5th graders. We have about 100 kids involved in student council at Bronner. They are student ambassadors for new students that enroll at our school. They are about to begin their Candygram sale very soon, and that provides a gift for our campus. This year's funds will go to exercise equipment that will be placed on the track and just all around the track for our students to enjoy.
We like for our students to tell you a little bit about themselves and what they enjoy about our school before they will lead you in the pledges, and this also helps them practice their public speaking skills. So now we'll welcome our 4 student council officers.
Good evening. I'm Lydia Hernandez. My favorite thing about Bronner is my friends and my teachers because they are always so nice. My parents are Herlinda and Roberto Hernandez.
Hello, my name is Jet Hollowell. One of my favorite things about Bronner is all of the fun activities like Football Friday. My parents are John Hollowell and Ashley Pearson.
Hello, I'm Jaden Hemphill. My favorite thing about Bronner is how every day is different. We celebrate national days. For instance, today is National Pie Day. My favorite type of pie is pumpkin. My mom is Jennifer Hemphill.
Hello, I'm Nikki Arredondo. My favorite thing about Bronner is that I can socialize and communicate with other people and get to know them better. My parents are Lucina and Nicolas Arredondo. We will now lead you into the pledge to the American flag. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now for the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
We have a kindness pledge we say each morning at our morning meeting. At Bronner, we are kind to ourselves, kind to each other, and kind to this space.
We also say our motto in Spanish, aprendizaje para todos, cueste lo que cueste. Bronner would like to thank our GISD school board members for everything you do for all the schools in Granbury. We appreciate you.
At Bronner, we show our best by being respectful, engaged, safe, and trustworthy, and repeat this statement every morning.
Our motto at Bronner is learning for all, whatever it takes. We know that you also do whatever it takes to help our school and our community.
Thank you again for inviting Bronner to lead the pledges this evening.
Would the parents of these kids please stand and let us recognize you and thank you for the good job you've done with your children. At this time, we will move into the Achievement Spotlight. Dr. Glenn.
Thank you, Madam President. At this time, we'll ask Mario Morales, Director of Bands, to come and present.
Test, there we go. Good evening, Board. Good evening, Dr. Glenn and administration. Today we have a wonderful representation that will be done at TMEA this year, so I'm just going to read a little brief statement here. Layla Escatel is a member of the Granbury High School Band, and she will be performing with the Texas All-State Band in San Antonio on February 11th. Just to tell you a little bit about the process that she's gone through. Layla Escatel was chosen for this prestigious honor through a competitive process held this year across the state at district, region, and area levels. High school students selected to perform in the All-State concert has competed through auditions to qualify at the state level. All-State is the highest honor a Texas music student can receive. 1,875 students are selected through the process that began with over 70,000 students from around the state vying for this honor to perform in one of the 18 ensembles. The TMEA, which is the Texas Music Educator Association, sponsors the Texas All-State competition. This competitive process began throughout the state in the audition hosted by Region 33 Music. Individual musicians perform selected music from a panel of judges who rank each instrument. From this ranking, a selected group of musicians advance from their region to compete against musicians from other areas in the 8 TMEA area competitions. So with that being said, the highest ranking musician judged at the TMEA area competition qualifies to perform in a TMEA All-State music group. Only 2.6% of musicians who initially audition become an all-state musician. So we're very proud of Layla that she will be representing Granbury ISD in February at TMEA. So we're here to give her that.
We miss that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Morales.
Is a parent of this young lady here? Thank you so much again for the time and effort.
And at this time, we'll have our GHS cheer coaches, Ms. McLaurin and Mrs. Lane.
Thank you, Board and Dr. Glenn, for inviting us here to be recognized. The Granbury High School cheerleaders competed on January 13th and 14th at UIL Spirit State. We competed against 73 5A D1 schools, and we were 9th in the state, and number 1 in the district. Very proud of this talented group of young athletes. They're a great group.
This is only our second year to make finals. Last year, we made 11th place, and that was our first year to make finals. And this year, the top 10 teams get their names called, and so placing ninth was an honor. And next year, you'll see champions.
Yay.
Did you hand sanitize? Thank you. Thank you. You don't have to shake my hand. You were kidding.
While they are lining up, will their parents please stand if you're here? Parents, please stand. Let us acknowledge you. I don't see any. No. Yeah, I think you're right. Again, parents, if you're here, will you wave at us or stand?
Well done, well done. Congratulations, cheer. At this time, I'll call up Mrs. Hunsinger to talk about our robotics teams.
Good evening. I have 2 of our 9 robotics teams here. Both of these teams have qualified for UIL State, which we will be going to Houston in 2 weeks for, and then also the RECF VEX State Tournament. So we're super excited about that. These kids have put in hundreds of hours above and beyond their normal practice time. They started at the end of last year, worked all through the summer, and just to give you an idea, each of these teams put in 85 plus hours over Christmas break alone. So we literally live up at that school. They get there at 6:30 in the morning, and we don't leave sometimes until 7:30 at night. So these kiddos put in the time. They deserve going to state, and we are seriously hoping for a world's invitation that they can earn from the state tournaments. So Ms. Smith and I are so proud of you guys and honored to work with y'all and just see y'all do amazing things. So thank you all so much, and let's go to Worlds.
Yeah. Are there parents or family here? If you'll give us a wave, if your parents or family. Thank you again.
All right, congratulations. Lots of recognitions tonight. At this time, I'm going to call our Child Nutrition Department planner and trainer, Shauna Hibbett, up to the podium.
Okay.
Good evening. In the month of October, Child Nutrition decided to get into the Texas Department of Agriculture's Farm Fresh initiative. They put it out every year in the month of October, and all that they ask is that you highlight menu items that are locally grown. And so we chose this year that we were going to, they have two different categories. They have prime participant, which was something that we thought, okay, we're going to dip our toe in. We're just going to start a little easy. Now, next year, we're going for best of the bunch because that's putting something on our menu every single week in the month of October. So this year, we chose to do 3 items. One was our milk, which is done by Oak Farms. All of our milk from Oak Farms is locally harvested here in Texas. There are 2 actual farmers that they use, and it's really cool. If you ever go to oakfarms.com, you can actually look and meet the farmers. One of the farmers is in Stephenville and the other one's in Dublin. So very close to home, and that is on our menu every single day of the week, breakfast, lunch. Any child that comes in can get chocolate or white milk, their choice. And then the second thing we chose to highlight was our apples, which come from Top of Texas apples. They're actually out in the panhandle, and they're gala apples, delicious, crispy, awesome. And the last thing that we chose to highlight on our menu this year was we bought lettuce. It was romaine lettuce from a hydroponic grown farm in Belton, Texas, and it's called True Harvest. The thing that we got back, our biggest feedback, we put that in our high school because we weren't real sure what the little kids would think of romaine lettuce. It's all leafy and fluffy and green. So we put it at the high school, and the biggest feedback we got back was how crisp and crunchy it was. And if you don't know anything about hydroponic growing, I totally say go out, learn it, because it's amazing. It's very little soil, lots of water. And so it just makes that produce so much crisper, so much better. And we are going to be putting that back on our menu in April and May. So going into next year, we are so proud of our workers and the work that they put into preparing this food for our students. And we're so excited and so happy to just keep growing our menu and making it better and better every year. So we are definitely going bigger next year. We're going for that best of the bunch. And we were so excited to receive our certificate of recognition from TDA, which is just a huge honor. So thank you, guys.
All right, and one more achievement spotlight tonight. I will call up the president of the Granbury Education Foundation, Stacy Mitchell.
Good evening. First of all, this is my yearly report that I come as the president of the Education Foundation to present to the board. And I would like, before I begin, to thank the board so much for their time and energy they put into the students and teachers of Granbury ISD. We appreciate you. Our board supports and appreciates you so much. So thank you. And I was just going to let you be aware this year, you may have seen some of our records we've been hitting. Our 50 fellas for this year brought in $151,000, which is the most we ever have. And we have decided with our next one that we actually gave away about $88,000 in grants, a little over $88,000. And we decided as a board that we wanted to aim a little higher, and after our 10th 50 Fellows reached the giving amount of $1 million, so we set a pretty high goal there. So our last meeting, we went ahead and we're doing a few more awards. So we are hoping after our 50 Fellows next year, we will reach that $1 million goal, and I feel very sure we will. We're very excited, and we're just very thankful for everything we get to do for our students and teachers here in Granbury. So thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. We'll move now to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam President. First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge, for those of you who don't know, January across the state of Texas is Board Appreciation and Recognition Month. And so before we begin, on behalf of the students and staff and community of Granbury ISD, would like to say thank you to all of our trustees. Public service certainly can be a thankless position, but you guys show up each and every day. You're dedicated to this community, you're dedicated to our taxpayers, and most importantly, you're dedicated to our students and staff. And for that, we thank you. We also want to thank all of our campus principals. Thank you notes from the kids were provided for the trustees prior to this meeting, and also a big shout out to Mrs. Langdon and her kids in the culinary department at GHS. Right before the meeting, we had some light hors d'oeuvres, and it was absolutely amazing what those kids put together. And so the fellowship and the friendship and certainly the service is appreciated. So on behalf of our entire community, we thank each of you for your service. As far as the superintendent report for this month, proud to say that attendance continues to climb steadily. Appreciate the principals and the teachers placing such emphasis on that. We sit just under 95%, so right at about 94% as a district. As you know, districts across the state continue to recover post-COVID with attendance issues, but we're steadily making those gains as a district. We set 95% as a goal, and we continue to work toward attainment of that. From an academic standpoint, this block of instruction, this 8-week period from when we return from Christmas break until we leave out on spring break, is our largest instructional block of the spring semester. And I can tell you, I've met with the campus principals, our administrators, not only at the district level, but even at the campus level, and they understand the sense of urgency as the passing standard increases for the STAR test, but also the testing format, knowing that the test will be all online for our kids this year, which will present some unique challenges. But I really feel like our staff is up to the challenge. They understand that this is an opportunity for growth during this instructional block, and many of our campuses have already put tutoring in place for kids to make sure those that are behind are on grade level by the time we test. Also, safety audits. We talked a lot about safety audits coming down from TEA in the fall semester. Make no mistake, this is something that's going to continue. It's an initiative from the top down at the highest levels of the state, and certainly as a district, I speak for not only our administration but our school board when I say we want to make sure that our campuses are safe, and when those auditors step onto our campuses, they see that we are in total compliance with the initiatives set forth by the governor. Finally, let everyone know we do not only have this meeting this week, but we are going to look toward a workshop on the 26th with Templeton Demographics to discuss growth and begin the planning, strategic planning process as we move beyond this year and look at what the district growth will do to our district over the next decade. And then finally, toward the end of next week, we'll be hearing from Representative Shelby Slauson, who will be coming to the district to meet with school districts from around the area to talk not only about school finance, but also safety, and a big issue that really affects Granbury ISD, and that's recapture. About $7 million of local taxpayer money will be recaptured by the state, meaning it does not get to stay here for our kids. And certainly as we get into this legislative session, that's something that we are concerned about. How can we keep more of our taxpayer money here in Granbury for our kids? And as a final reminder, we will be at Bronner. Great job with the pledges. And we will be there with you Wednesday morning at 6:50 a.m. for breakfast with the board. So, Madam President, that's what we have this month.
Thank you, Dr. Glenn. At this time, we will call on Tammy Clark, who will do our public hearing for our annual TAPR report.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy coming to do the TAPR report, Texas Academic Performance Report, because it gives me an opportunity to brag on all of our kids' hard work and our teachers' hard work, everything that we're doing at the campus level to push kids forward. So let me see. There we go. So TAPR comes out in December. We got it right before the holiday, and then we are required to do a board presentation within 90 days after that. So that's one of the reasons why we're here. This is what we're going to go through. We're going to go pretty fast. If you have any questions, we'll have time at the end, and if you have questions further than that, then just ask me to have some time and we can sit down and we can go through it some more. But we'll go over the campus. Actually, the campus performance objectives, I'm not going to go over each one. I put that in your board book, the long version. If you have questions about a specific campus, you can talk to me about that at a different time. And all of these will be posted online for anyone else to see after this meeting. We will go over the accreditation status, the special education compliance status, our safe schools status, and then tracking of previous year's graduates. Those are all requirements. THECB is the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. So I know there's a lot of acronyms, so I'm going to try to catch them all and say what they are. So there we go. There we go. Okay, this link is to the GISD TAPR report, and in your packet you have each campus TAPR report. But I pulled out some of the things that I wanted to really highlight, and you'll see when we go through the elementary, middle school, and high school graphs. GISD outperforms the state in district and average passing percentages on approaches, meets, and masters. So when these kids take this test, there's different cut points. Approaches is passing, meets, and then masters is, exceeds all expectations and doing really well. So we outperform state and district average passing for most of our academic areas in all three of those areas. It's also important to note that in most of these areas, our performance this year is even better than last year. So we continue to make growth as we're getting better every day. So our emerging bilingual population is starting to grow, but our campuses are making sure that we're meeting those needs. And that population, just their numbers alone, outperform state and regional passing percentages for the tested areas as well. And most of them as well made improvements over last year's TAPR report. Our graduation rate is higher than state and regional 11 averages. One of our focus points is CCMR. It's important to note that all of the CCMR data for our high school is 2 years behind, where everything else is last year's data. CCMR data is 2 years prior. So sometimes it takes us a little bit of time to catch up there. We have a focus on on-ramps courses and having more AP and dual credit opportunities for our students. We are also working very hard hard. Todd Gibson is actually working very hard at getting IBCs, those certification areas for our students. And those efforts are going to realize themselves in a couple of years with this area really growing. Most areas have improved over our 2019-2020 data, which was what we reported on last year. And this year specifically, our high school admin team has put together a group that focuses on tracking those numbers and making sure that we're knowing exactly what our students need in order to be career and college ready. All right, so this is the exciting part, and it made it really simple. I took the passing rates for the state in all of the tested areas for elementary, and that's in red. And then Region 11, that's our North Texas region, and that's in blue. And then you can see the purple, which is higher in every single one of those tested areas in elementary. Our students outperformed both the state and the region. Okay, for middle school, you can see the same trend. One of the areas is 8th grade math, where it looks like we're lagging a little bit. I will note that we have close to 20% of our students that accelerate in grade 8 and take the algebra end of course exam instead of grade 8 math. So that's 20% of those students in our grade 8 group. And then our EOC results, again, outperforming the state and regional areas in our EOCs. So some of our district performance notes that are there as well. AP and dual credit course completion and graduation rate, we outpace the state. You can see those numbers, and as we continue to grow our dual credit, dual enrollment, and AP courses, we'll continue to push that number higher. College ready grads in ELA and math is a little bit lower than the state percentage. We talked about the industry-based certification, and that's a 2-year lag, and Todd Gibson is going to get us there on that. And that's higher than it was last year as well. We don't have as many students taking the ACT and SAT, especially posting their scores at the Granbury High School, but our average SAT and ACT score is higher than the state's percentage and higher than last year. All right, so campus performance objectives. There's a couple of high notes, and I really just want to talk a little bit about the instructional piece. Obviously, our kids are performing well, but that's because our teachers are digging in and really trying to individualize instruction and make sure that they're hitting every single student where they're at and growing them. So we're improving Tier 1 instruction and interventions. And our campus administration is really good at leading that charge with our T-TEST and T-PEST to align with the state. We've reintegrated that. And then observation feedback coaching to help every teacher get better for their students. Reading Academies continues in the early literacy age groups. We purchased an attendance program called RAWE, and we're tracking attendance very closely, and we're communicating well with parents of students that are having some attendance issues and trying to see if we can help bridge that gap if we need to, so that everybody knows that for us to continue to improve, their kids have to be at school. And so our semester 1 increase is 1.55% over last year's semester 1. And then the safety and security protocols, we also have expanded Raptor for that. Ms. Townsend was here already when there were some drills going on. It's an online app on our phone. That increases our ability to know what's going on, exactly when it's going on, where it's happening, and if everybody's okay. And they're able to communicate through that app, and it's amazing. So that's been a very good push, and we're doing a lot of drills that way so that everybody is very practiced for if something happens on campus. We've also increased our partnership with community and schools. We've added a social worker this year and a professional counselor that works with the LPC that we have on staff, so meeting mental health needs as well. And then our intruder audits from first semester, we passed the the intruder audits first semester. We're ready for the intruder audits from TEA for second semester, and just rolling right along with all of our new safety protocols to make sure that staff and kids are safe on campus. So, in your packets, there's lots of things for each one of the campuses. There is one that is kind of printed weird that says demographics and highlights, and it talks about the students and the staff. It's not printed well, but it'll be online and you'll be able to see it where it'll make a little bit more sense. But one of the notes that I had to say about that is that our average class size is 20.5. For every single grade, if you look at the GISD taper, we have a higher class student to teacher ratio at every single grade except for first. And so we do have a lot of intervention pullouts that are ESSER funded, but we do have bigger class sizes. All right. So district accreditation. There we go. Our district is a B, and we do not have any schools in Granbury that are rated a D or an F. And so Bacchus is still on targeted support, but that's because in 2019, they were comprehensive, which is a 2-year target, and in 2020 we didn't test, so they couldn't have an opportunity to get out of it then, and in 2021 they didn't rate schools, and so they didn't have an opportunity to get out of it then, but we did have an opportunity to take our year 1. So that was year 1 of implementation of our targeted plan, and then we got our results back, and they did so fantastic, but they still have a year 2. And so we're still doing that targeted plan for Bacchus, but I have no doubt that at the end of this year, they'll be out of that. So special education, the same thing. We were last year under a needs assistant determination status, but Ms. Shelley Kurtzinger and her staff had worked very well with all of the campus admin and put a support plan in place, and we met the needed targets. We still have areas to improve in, but we met the needed targets so that now we meet the requirements in SPED. And then for safe schools, there were 6 incidents, and you have more information about that in your packets. Campus distinctions is something that we have to report about, but I'm super happy to report about them, because to get a distinction, you have to be in the top quarter of your group. And so each campus is in a different group of 40 schools, and to get a distinction, you have to perform well. Your students have to perform well. So GHS and GMS each had 1 distinction. AMS earned 5 distinctions. And you can see AES 5, Bacchus 3, Oakwoods with all 6, Mambrino with 3, and Bronner with 4. STARS is an accelerated campus, and they're not eligible for distinctions, but they did get an A, so I want to say that again. Another mandatory reporting deal that's kind of hard to understand, that's that Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. We have to report their tracking of our 2020 graduates after their first year of college. It's kind of hard because it's just Texas schools that are tracking, and it's not all of the private schools, and it's not even all of the technical schools. So the ones that report to them, they put on their website. So that's where some of those not trackable, not found are from. The other ones are out of state, are tons of students that go to military academies and go into enlisted military service. They're not counted in that either. So that's why that not trackable, not found number is high, because they don't get included there. So the 3 areas of focus that Dr. Glenn gave us: academics, attendance, and safety and security. We absolutely have a lot of growth in those areas that we have shown already, and we're putting processes and procedures in place to continue to grow there. And then some other areas of focus, bridging the gap for our students in some of those subpopulations that historically struggle. our economically disadvantaged students, our Hispanic students, our SPED, and our bilingual population. They're consistently lower. They have a harder time finding that success, and so we are making improvements there, and we are targeting to make sure that they find the same academic success as everyone else. Supporting and connecting families, campuses, our community, our students, our parents. We have a goal of everybody being able to support and connect and grow together in partnership. So that's a goal. And then providing opportunities for our students. We're continuing to expand in CTE certifications, our partnership with Tarleton, improving our CCMR targets, all of those things, dual credit, dual enrollment, and making our high school so that they can get their Texas credits for higher ed as well. All of those things are to provide opportunity for our kids. And so that's another target area of focus. So the glossary has to be linked. It didn't necessarily have to be printed, but if you have any questions, I can stay here or you can contact me later.
No questions, but I will say, Tammy, thank you very much for the report. Appreciate the thoroughness of the report. Also want to mention Stacy Brown and her team in the curriculum department. I know they put a lot of work in to help you prepare and also to prepare for testing. And I think if I were to call Stacy up, she would point her fingers back to the campuses. And
Yes.
All of our campus principals are here tonight, and they really do a yeoman's job making sure that our kids are prepared. And if I were to call them up, they would point the fingers at their staff and say, we have great teachers in Granbury ISD. And we also have great students in Granbury ISD. We partner with our parents, and that partnership is what has allowed our district to thrive academically over the last couple of years during COVID, where other schools maybe saw a slight decline. So well done to you and to the administrators in the audience, and certainly all of our teachers working online. We appreciate that hard work.
Yeah, I'll echo that about the campus principals and admin and the teachers, just so very intentional in working with our kids and their parents to make sure that they continue to grow. So they definitely deserve at least this much bragging and a pat on the back for sure.
I think we ought to give our students a big hand and our staff a big hand because, folks, those purple lines look great to me. So thank you so much. At this time, we'll move into public comments. We only have 8 people who have requested to address the board. And will you time them? Someone will time them. Will you time them over there? Okay, so we'll give them each 5 minutes, and we'll let everybody speak early in the meeting tonight, since there are only 8 total. The first one is Manetta Howell.
I guess my writing wasn't that great. It's Marietta Harrell.
I apologize.
That's okay. All right. I wanted to talk about the airplane itself because I have a question that I think the board, I know you can't address me, and I'm not asking you to, but you need to ask and answer it amongst yourselves and maybe even involve your legal department. And I want to acknowledge that I understand that there are 2 airplanes. There is an experiment, or I guess a kit airplane that's built and sold, and then there is the Cessna. Am I correct in that understanding? I believe the 2 airplanes. And one program, the Eagle's Nest program, has been in place since 2016, and it's a phenomenal program. I think you've done a great job with that. The one I want to address, though, is the purchase of the Cessna done in April of 2021. My understanding is the first pilot, student pilot, became a pilot around February of 2022, last year, so almost a year into it, we had produced, as a school district, one pilot. Again, I don't have any problem with your program, your CTE program. I think that most people in this community are happy that we have those types of programs offered at our school. They're very important to produce students who go on in life and become very productive. What I want to talk to you about is the lack of policies surrounding the aircraft itself. Your attorney last meeting pointed out that there was a lack of policies and therefore there could be no accountability for what took place with the airplane. It's very clear, very understandable how he came to that conclusion in and of itself. But my question is, without clear policies, where is the legal responsibility for the pilot should he have an incident in that plane that injures either a student or a member of the public? No one sets out in the morning saying, I'm going to have an accident today. Accidents happen. No one intends to miss a stop sign or a stoplight, at least no sane person, but it happens. And so what I want to ask the school district, this board in particular, is that what happens if there's an incident? And the scenario I'm going to give you is based on my background. For over 8 years, I investigated railroad-related accidents involving the public for an interstate railroad. I also spent 4 years investigating large exposure trucking accidents. I was called to the scenes of those accidents, both in the trucking industry and in the railroad industry, at the moment they happened, many times arriving before emergency personnel. My background there was a hindsight risk management. I could see the problem after the incident happened, which got me to a point of being able to foretell incidents. That's how we ended up with OSHA regulations and things like that, which I also wrote for some of the wholly owned subsidiary trucking companies that my employer worked with. When someone's a member of the public is in an accident, or a student, his parents, would sue the school district and possibly, if there's pilot error, could name the pilot as a defendant in a lawsuit. So my first question is, does the state tort law, which limits recovery, according to your attorney last week, of $100,000 per person, $300,000 per incident, what happens if the judgment assessed against a pilot is greater than that? Is he responsible or his assets responsible, or does state law indemnify him completely as an employee in light of the fact that you have no clear-cut policies? Would he have been performing in accordance with the policies, which we don't have, and his job description? Those are questions you need to, I am not an attorney, you need to ask your legal counsel. The second one is, if he were to get a judgment against him for an incident where they find pilot error, so a case that goes to attorney, to the end of a lawsuit with a judgment, would he then, his personal assets be at risk if the judgment was against him individually? These are questions, if I were the pilot, that I would want the answer to, and I would want to know before I took that plane up again. And I think that you as a board would want to know the answers in order to better, I guess my time is up, and to better, thank you for letting me speak. I hope that this gives you an idea of some questions you should ask.
Thank you so much for coming, Marietta. Jerry Daughtry on the airplane.
I have not taken the opportunity to talk to this board since October. There have been some changes in faces on the board since then. But one of the things that brings me back tonight is that I have not seen a change in the culture of the board majority that I had hoped would take place by now. And last month's meeting is one that gives me evidence in my mind to support the notion that the culture of elitism among the board majority is a continuing problem. I noticed last month that we had a seating arrangement where seats were assigned to certain board members. Now, it makes sense to me for the board chairman to be in the center, but we have a group of elected adults, and I do not understand where the authority comes from or even the wisdom comes from to assign seats to adults who have been elected by the public. I thought it was a very interesting coincidence that Ms. Graff and Ms. Lowry were seated at the opposite ends of this podium so that they're about as far apart from each other as they could possibly be. I guess that was just by happenstance. Now, another issue that came up in the board meeting last month was a vote to change the standard operating procedures back to what they had been prior to last year's change. The vote was 5-2 to keep them as they were, even though the clear purpose of that change last year had outlived its purpose. It was decided that we would just continue on with the practice created last year over the practice that had been followed for years before. My view of that is that really was a slap in the face of the so-called group of the 8 and gives me indication that the board is still of a mind to rule by absolute tyranny over any dissenting voices. The cover-up investigation that was conducted by the attorney firm that was hired to look into the plane circumstance, in my mind, was a clear effort on the part of the school board to provide cover for themselves so that they would not have to hold anybody publicly accountable for what went on with the misuse of school property. So, I think what we have is a culture of elitism that says that we're going to rule by a 5-2 majority on these things. That is a mystery to me as to how this board can continue to take that kind of attitude in view of the election results over the past couple of years. You have lost 2 incumbents and 1 each in the last 2 board elections, and now you are faced with a 5-member majority that is in control of things. And that interests me because one of those members of that 5 has clearly turned her back on what her campaign positions were when she was elected to this board and is now part of that 5-vote majority. One of the members that was elected in this past election was elected by a plurality so that he actually had more people vote against him than he had people vote for him. But he's part of that 5-vote majority. There are 2 of you sitting at the dais at this particular point that are up for election in November. And if the present trend continues where we lose an incumbent every year, at least one of you is a lame duck as you sit here tonight. So how you can continue to have this kind of attitude about how you're going to rule things is a mystery to me. Now, as it relates to the airplane, I don't have any quarrel with the aviation program, as the lady previously stated, but I do think that the owning of that airplane is a bridge too far. We should recognize that there's a limit as to just how far and what kind of liability we will assume. Because even though we've talked about the financial liability involved, there is a liability here that cannot be measured in money. And as tonight you consider continued ownership of that plane, you need to take into consideration just how much emotional liability you want to bring upon yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Dowdle. Sherry Johnson on book banning.
Hi, everyone. I am Sherry Johnson. I've been here before, and I am the president of Texas Democratic Women of Hood County. Also, we as a group, we support Granbury ISD wholeheartedly. I do enjoy coming here and hearing about all the great educational things that are going on in this district. I'm a former teacher. I retired from teaching 25 years in Waco ISD. And I do like to hear all these good things that are going on. We do still have one issue that bothers me and my group, and that is the book banning issue, because it's still going on here. Unfortunately, we continue to make national news in a negative way because of this issue. And the biggest issue I have is the book banning that has to do with banning books that have LGBTQ characters. I think we all need to understand what sexual orientation means, because it's not completely known why someone might be lesbian, gay, straight, or bisexual. But research shows that sexual orientation is likely caused partly by biological factors that start before birth. It's not a choice, and reading books about gay characters is not going to turn your kid gay. It's just not going to happen. That being said, most LGBTQ students say that they continually face hostility at school. In a survey of 20,000 6th through 12th graders, they shared their experiences during the 2021 school year. 83% of those students experienced harassment or assault. 82% felt unsafe at school. That's a huge percentage. 58% heard homophobic remarks by the staff of the school. Such intolerance is sadly common in school. While some have faced bullying from students, many experience intimidation and even straight-up bullying from the adults in their school. Schools can establish, these are some things that can be done to help that. Schools can establish LGBTQ clubs, enforce anti-bullying policies that explicitly protect LGBTQ students, provide staff training on inclusive practices, which I actually have had a former teacher from here ask me I don't know what to do to help these students feel safer, and give transgender students access to facilities that match their gender identity. Something about creating an inclusive school and removing anti-LGBTQ toxicity makes the school better for everyone. Removing books is a negative impact because it's censorship, and it makes those students feel like they are less than valuable. So, Granbury ISD has been sued for violating Title IX, which basically says that school districts cannot deny students the right to be themselves in school, be it through book bans, discriminatory comments, or other harmful policies. Since there is a federal investigation of sex discrimination, I wonder what measures are being taken to ensure the civil rights of LGBTQ students here in Granbury ISD. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Hannah Bain or Baum?
Hello, Board. Thank you so much for being here and for
donating your time, volunteering in these positions. I am up here to talk to you guys about the books as well. According to a public records request, over 700 titles that totals more than 1,000 copies of books have been removed from the school since July. They were weeded from the collection. I worked at a library as well, so I'm familiar with weeding, and it's said that it was done with the procedures according to the, I forget the exact name, but there's a procedure that you all are following. The problem that I noticed with this was that there was not a reason noted for the books being removed. And I think that the librarians put a lot of work and time into it, and it seems unusual to me that there wouldn't be a note as to why any specific book is removed. So these books, it's about 1,000 books. I would estimate if they're about $10 each when they're purchased, it comes to about $10,000 worth of books that were removed. Of course, they're older, so it might not be worth that anymore. In light of the federal investigation from the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights, they are looking into the discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender. And I believe that these books should be returned and given a reason for why they were removed. I also believe that content relating to LGBTQ community must be included in the library's collection so that all students feel welcomed and included at our schools. Regarding you guys' criteria about adding books, I saw that there's criteria about having an official age or grade range for each school. I'm afraid that this might be construed and interpreted strictly, and I'm a little bit afraid that this would be a disservice to advanced readers that might not have access to books at their reading level if it's beyond their grade level. Definitely taking into account of content, of course. I just want to say thank you so much for your time, and I hope to hear some of these issues addressed at the next meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Monica Brown on the GISD policy.
Thank you. The policy I want to point out is EHAA, local and legal. In my experience this past year about the books, I have spoken to some of the highest level staff who are not familiar with it. And I would encourage every one of you to read it because of what it is. It's required general instruction for K through 12th grade. It talks about financial literacy, English history, all those stuff. All character qualities, talks about teaching the Old Testament and the New Testament, kindergarten through 12th grade. So that is there. It's from TASB. It is statewide. It's not just Granbury, but it's something that I think if we look close, we'll see there's some key areas that are being ignored. And of course, there are great areas that we are working on, and I see that. Tonight, I just want to ask the teachers to look at it because many of them have told me they had never heard of it. They were too busy focusing on TEKS to know what the actual policy says. EHAA local, very simple. Anybody can understand it. It's on your board, online board policy. There's a common opinion among the trustees and the majority of this audience, or at least in this community, that the books that have been in question over this past year need to be seriously considered. Many of them are immoral, no matter what gender or what it is. If you take a look at it and you give an honest assessment, you'll see they're sexually explicit books with little to no educational value that can be proven. The simple test is, would you read them to your children or your grandchildren on purpose? Most of us never would because there is no redeeming value. and it wouldn't lead the listener to a higher place in their thinking or their beliefs. Any follow-up family discussions would not be about love or selflessness in relationships, but baser, self-centered thinking. Would not be pointing them to good character. And every one of us here have, you especially as a board, have discussed character and your Christian values in your campaigns. Definition of character, 1, is a person with good character acts, thinks, and feels in a way that matches commonly accepted good traits like being honest, respectful, responsible, caring, and fair. Good traits may also be called good values or good morals. Character is based on common good traits and beliefs, and all of you trustees, every one of you, have boldly and proudly stated during your campaigns and other public appearances that you are Christians. And we take that at face value, and if character is seen through your actions based on beliefs, then this board is not projecting their beliefs in their decision-making. You are allowing others, whoever they are, ACLU or whoever, to distract you and keep you from demonstrating good character to the children in this situation. This situation is a teaching moment for our community. Our children and our citizens need to see an act of character, courage, even in the face of severe repercussions. You led an effort to spend $500 million on steel, bricks, mortar. Are you not willing to let your beliefs inform your actions and risk a few $1,000,000 should we be sued? Wouldn't it be better to assemble our high school students and explain to them that these materials do not promote good relationships between men and women? That we're acting as adults out of our beliefs and the beliefs of this community for their good? That we don't bend our beliefs to the pressure we feel from a few citizens and from the ACLU? Okay, our nation, our state, and our community are under this kind of thinking encroachment to undermine our young people, to teach extreme selfishness and promote general moral decay. Whether you like it or not, you are a line of defense. The right thing would be to draw our community together because you are acting out of defensible beliefs that move us toward good. You have this opportunity to be leaders, to send a strong message to our children that we love them and their development is our number one goal, and our community lives its values like this out daily. This Friday and Saturday night, there's a biblical citizenship class at Brazos Covenant Ministries. It's totally free. It's led by Patriot Academy. I think you can get it online if you don't even attend the meeting, but it's a great place to get started for citizens in general. PragerU also has a parent action guide to guide parents in how to promote change. Wall Builders is in Aledo. They're offering teacher training in Irving, 2 of them this summer for government teachers, history teachers, administrators in general, to inform and to make sure you are very strong in understanding the original intent in our country and successful practices from the past. So I just wanted to announce that because I'm attending these things and I'm inviting everybody I can to get involved and to understand we the people and what our rights are and to stand up for our students.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Greg Harrell. On various things.
That's right. Well, I've already, thank you. Members of the board, Superintendent Glenn, thank you for the opportunity for me to address you tonight once again. I get the opportunity to talk to you. I want to start off by saying that just literally a few hours ago, our community said goodbye to what I consider she was a fearless and tireless warrior in regards to the defense of our children, a lady named Donna Cole who passed away on January 16th. You might recall Donna because she was the little red-haired lady that came up and many times spoke to each and every one of you about the book issue in particular. At least lately she had talked a lot about the book issue. And she brought with her, as she always did, and I thought this was so interesting, she brought with her facts and figures that underscored what she was presenting to each and every one of you in regards to the impact of pornography on young people. And she would talk about her experience in the prison system and how, as she would talk to those people that were inmates in the prison system, most every one of those inmates would tell her that they started with pornography. So she was fearless in regards to addressing you and asking you to make a move to get any pornography out of the school system altogether, out of the independent school district altogether. So I just wanted to acknowledge her as I stood before you. We will definitely miss her as part of our community, and I will certainly miss her inside because and her leadership. Having said that, it's unfortunate that she passed away without really feeling like there was a final resolution to the issue that she was so passionate about. And I think that as I consider the fact that she's gone now, I'm concerned because not only are we still dealing with the issue of books, and I'd like to get that behind us, but in so many cases, as we, the community, stand before you, the trustees, and you recall that I've talked to you about passing our trust to you, there are so many things that I feel like we have tried to communicate to you, the board, and which has either not been acted on or in some ways has just been kicked down the road. The can has been kicked down the road. Certainly the book issue might be one of those. I felt like, and I've addressed this before, but I felt like the issue of homeschoolers participating in UIL activities, I thought that that was a decision that was failed by this board and needs to be reconsidered. I was concerned, as one of the other speakers talked about, by the change in the standard operating procedures here on this board, because I did feel like it was a move to silence some voices. Having said that, I don't want to be up here and really come to you and appear like we are always in conflict with each other. Please don't receive it that way. I want to come up here and address you in a way that just says, look, you guys are the trustees. You have decisions to make. We understand that. We, as the community, simply stand here before you so that we can be heard. And thus far, I don't think that we've been heard in a lot of issues. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel. So therefore, I'm going to change my direction a little bit. I want to just proclaim something over you. It's from Philippians 4. As you guys take up these issues, and as you consider every issue, I want you to consider them in terms of whatever is true, whatever is just, whatever is noble, whatever is pure, whatever is virtuous. If there's anything that's praiseworthy, I would like you to base your decisions on those things. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Dave Eagle on Texas Open Meetings Act.
Howdy, board. Good to see you. Been a while. When y'all were bumping it to the end, I had to leave every time the last 2 or 3 meetings, but I want to start the new year right. I made a run at the school board before on the Open Meetings Act, and I just want to point this out and call it to your attention and give you some food for thought. You have a standing closed session at 5 p.m. to 6. And that is really, it contravenes the Open Meetings Act. And here's why. And I'm not going to be asking you to answer this because you can't. But you show that you went in there to talk about staff recommendations and consider appointments. Maybe you did. The catastrophic leave, yeah, I'm sure you did that one. Deliberations regarding security. You got that every time. I'm doubtful you talk about it every time. Purchase and lease of real estate. You got it on there every time. I doubt if you talk about it every time. In private consult with your attorney, you got it on there every time, and I doubt if you do it every time. And the reason I'm bringing this out is because in the Commissioner's Court, as you know, I'm Precinct 4, just got reelected, and the Open Meetings Act is very important to me. It's part of being transparent. And if you go look at Commissioner's Court agendas for the last 2 years, you're going to see that we go into very, very, very few executive sessions. And it's not about what you do back there every time in a standing meeting, but it's about what it looks like. It doesn't look good. And they told me in law school, even if it's legal, if you do something that doesn't look good, maybe you ought not do it. And so I want to point that out, not in anger or not getting on to you or anything else, but because y'all have been, the school board has been doing this for a long time, so that's your practice. But I'd like for you to think about it, because do you need to go into an executive session every time? I'm glad to see you put the speakers back in the order. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But I want to go off of something that Mr. Doherty said about elections. On January the 1st, the Commissioner's Court flipped. And what once was myself and another commissioner were the minority 2, it's flipped. Now we've got 3 on our side of the docket. And we are coming, I'm a member of the Republican Party, have been for many years, and we take elections seriously. And so I would like to at least place on the table the idea that when people come to this podium, whether you have the Democrat chair here or you've got a Republican like me here, that you listen to us, number one, but you think about what we're asking you, because we're the taxpayers. And I would put forth to you to consider what we ask for. I know this book deal is a big deal, and it's been going on now for some time, and I don't know what the answers are to it. I know you're put into a very precarious place. But the taxpayers are the ones that are paying for the school. And I don't think it's about LGBTQ, by the way. That's a smokescreen, in my opinion. And just like the Democrat chair has an opinion about what she thought, I've got an opinion about what I think. And so I will say this in closing, that the Commissioner's Court just recently have gone to where, I know y'all only meet once a month, but we now have open mic twice a month, and we have a new commissioner on there that's very engaged and very much wants transparency, and we have the first female commissioner elected in Hood County ever, Miss Nanette Samuelson. So I appreciate what y'all are doing. We got an election coming up. Two of you guys are going to be running again, and think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eagle. We have, is it Cabry Burke? To talk about the high school dress code.
Hi, my name is Cabry, and I've been a Granbury ISD student for 7 years now, and I have run into some issues with our dress code. Living in Texas with extreme weather conditions such as 105-degree weather and not being able to wear regular length shorts is unreasonable. Shorts should not have to be 3 inches above the knee, but rather mid-thigh or covered in all private areas. Leggings should not have to be accompanied by a top that reaches 3 inches above the knee as well. What we decide to wear should be up to the student and their parents. If you are adequately covered in all private areas, then it should not matter what we choose to wear. Shorts and leggings are not a distraction. as well as what steps is the school taking to ensure that males are taught how to properly interact and view a female, because that has seemed to be a problem with the dress code and the reason for it. Our school prioritizes dress code over our own education. A student at Granbury High School had a severe allergic reaction, and instead of addressing her health, she was dress coded and told to change. That shows where our school's priorities are really at. It was not only shameful to the student, but neglectful to her own health issue. As well as sending students to ISS and making students change into different clothes not only creates a bigger distraction than the clothing itself, but it's also extremely downgrading and shaming to the students. I understand you want a professional environment, but this is too drastic. Many other schools have more laid-back dress codes, such as Alito and Toller, and many more. Tights, athletic pants, yoga pants, jeggings must be accompanied by a shirt or dress that adequately covers the entire bottom, quoted from Toller High School's dress code. All schools listed are very good academically and have proven that dress code does not affect students' academics. More so, schools have shown that there is no issue with students wearing more lenient type clothing. With examples of other schools and many student opinions, there is no reason that the dress code should not be modified to be more reasonable. This school is causing more harm than good with its dress code. It is shameful to students to be dress coded, and especially girls being over-sexualized in completely appropriate clothing. It is harmful to body image and emotionally abusive to be criticized and shamed for how they express themselves. Granbury High School prides itself on being the best, so it's time the administration starts treating students appropriately. I would also like to point out that Granbury High School frequently conveys the idea that they want to be a safe space and a home for students, which I completely agree with. However, they are eliminating that idea by shaming and sexualizing students and restricting their right to express themselves. I'm not asking for this dress code to be wear whatever you want. I'm just asking that it is more reasonable given weather conditions and the overall change in the economy and just the world itself. I think that it's time that we update this dress code to be more conform to what today's world is. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. While we do not respond to folks who come before us, Ms. Brown, I've read all 57 of your emails. I would like to verify some statements that perhaps would like to go on record as stating our librarians did use the Texas State Library and Archives Commission guidelines to do their reading this summer. That criteria sets up the copyright date. If it's out of date, they are weeded for that. If they have not been checked out in a number of years or seldom have checked out, they're weeded for that. If they're falling apart and beyond repair, they are weeded for that. If they are moldy, as the book on Martin Luther King Jr. was, they're weeded for that. If they, and some of the weeding that happened this summer, some of the middle school books were moved to the high school where they were more age appropriate. We do not have a system in this school that they can identify the reasons, because we do have a technology and it doesn't show why they were weeded. And I'm not sure that there's a system out there, but Follett does not. But we are listening to you. Just for your information, my first job was as an aide in a library in 1968. And I think this is the first time I've had both sides angry over the same issue. But until the OCR investigation is complete, our board pretty well will sit where we are. We will listen to you, but you will not see any board policies changed until we are through with that investigation. And I thank you all tonight for coming and expressing your concerns. Then we will go now to the consent agenda, which includes approved middle school course catalog for 23-24, approve the board minutes with corrections that have been submitted by Mr. Wimberly to Category 2 E-rating funding for network switches in our technology department. A first review of TASB localized policy update 120. Budget amendments that will be presented that have been presented by Mr. Whitefield, and approval to purchase large equipment for the kitchen. Do I have anyone that wants to pull any of the items?
Madam President, if I may, I would like to talk a little bit about the donations that we received this month. It was quite amazing. Our community has really stepped up to help Granbury ISD this month. From the Granbury Optimist Club, we received $720 to purchase food for the athletic freezers. This is above and beyond what they would get for their lunches and that. There was an anonymous donation, easy for me to say, to NJROTC student activity account for general operations of $2,500. There was a donation from the Lady Pirate Basketball Booster Club to the Lady Pirate Basketball Campus Activity Fund for their travel to Fredericksburg for a tournament of $3,200. Pirate Youth Cheer Association to AMS cheer students for their cheer camp of $250. The Thomas V. Giddens Foundation donated to the NJROTC Campus Activity Fund for the sole use of the MCJROTC program, $40,000. Ooh. Valencia Ditto donated to the AMS Avid Campus Fund, $2,000 for travel. And lastly, JD Cashin Agency gave $250 to the STARS Campus Activity Account for travel as well. That gave a grand total of $48,920 just this month that was given from our community to help our students. And I just think that they deserve a round of applause.
Do I have a motion?
Madam President, I move that we accept the consent agenda items as listed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda items as presented. All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, same sign. Let the record show that on a vote of 7-0, that is approved. Report from the Aviation Subcommittee and possible action related to the sale of the district airplane in accordance with Texas Education Code and board policies. Dr. Glenn.
Thank you, Madam President. You charged three trustees with coming together and visiting with our Career and Technical Education Director, Todd Gibson. That was Mrs. Graft, Mr. Wimberly, and Mrs. Townsend. I know they had an opportunity to meet and review data with Mr. Gibson. I'll ask him to the podium at this time to give a brief summary, and then we'll turn it over to Mr. Wimberly.
Well, he stole my first line. I was going to tell you he was part of that subcommittee, but I'll just go on to say that all of those folks that were on the subcommittee have some knowledge to some extent of the field of aviation, which was a good thing. We met and we reviewed financial statements. We looked at flight data. We looked at the individual classes and the vision of the program, the flight program, specifically getting students flight hours. And that initial vision was to get students a private pilot's license at a reduced cost. One of the goals for our meeting was to review that data, to make a recommendation tonight to the board for the potential sale of the GISD airplane. And after a lot of review and discussion, it is the recommendation of that subcommittee to sell the GISD airplane. So knowing that we have a partner flight school with in the pattern right there at the Granbury Airport, the sale of the GISD plane will not hinder our students from accumulating flight hours, and that program will continue to flow fairly well. Again, this won't negatively impact any of the classes in the aviation program of study either, and that is a brief summary of what we discussed. Mr. Wimberly?
I guess there's not a copy of this letter, but this is basically what the subcommittee agreed to, part of which Mr. Gibson went over, but I'll just go over it so I don't miss anything. I'll just read it. After looking at financial data collected over the time GISD is on the aircraft and considering the liability and potential risks associated with owning an aircraft, the subcommittee agrees that the sale of the GISD airplane is in the district's best interest. One of the original intentions of purchasing the plane back in 2021 was to save students money as they worked at attaining a private pilot's license. Over the past year, between November 2021 and November 2022, the cost of the maintenance, inspections, insurance, hangar fee, and other plane-related expenses were much higher than anticipated. Based on this financial data and the number of hours flown by students in the GISD airplane, we determined that the district would still be able to offer students discounted rates without owning an aircraft. The district would continue to go through our partner flight school for the flight instruction piece, but the district would begin to use the flight school's aircraft for that instruction in lieu of the GISD airplane. The sale of the airplane would go through a normal bid process after an appraisal is performed, and the funds generated from the sale of the plane will return to the CTE department as per the rules governing the CTE funds. New GISD aviation procedures and prerequisites are being developed and will reflect the reliance on the partner flight school for student flight hours. The sale of the GISD airplane will not hinder our students from accumulating flight hours. The sale will not negatively impact any of the classes in the aviation program of study. Though the total cost will not increase for students as they work toward their private pilot's license for the current academic year, the way GISD assists students in paying for flight hours and the requirements to fly in the GISD aviation program will be reevaluated for the 2023-2024 school year. We will continue with the current plan through July 31st, 2023. The subcommittee considered all factors when making this decision, included but not limited to financial impact on the taxpayers, benefits to the students, and liabilities associated with the ownership of an aircraft.
Thank you, Mr. Wimberly. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I have something I'd like to say. I wanted to say I believe we're very fortunate the plane issue came to our attention before a catastrophic event occurred and we would have been negatively impacted for years. We have the opportunity to fix this issue before someone's injured or killed. My concern is not directed with the aviation program directly, and it appears the aviation program is a successful program and worthy of the support of the community and GISD staff. My concern is the original purchase, use, cost, and risk liability of the district-owned airplane. To include the aviation program into the KBS investigation of scope of work only created concern and confusion to the GISD staff, teachers, students, and community. In my analysis, the risk to GISD is the driving force in whether we keep the plane or sell the plane. Regardless of the cost analysis of the aviation subcommittee that they've completed, the risk is the driving force behind my decision. In the KBS conducted Granbury ISD Aviation Flight Program Review, which is the report, the author states the plane's insurance policy amounts and covered persons are adequate to cover any statutorily capped
a liability in the event of an accident. In addition, the author stated this during his oral presentation before the board and the public. I find this disturbing that GISD administrators, board members, and staff would evaluate the risk of the plane based upon the statutory cap liability, which is on page 17 of the report. Basically, but what this says to our children, families, and community is that GISD accepts the risk the plane creates because the most we can lose is $100,000 per person, according to the insurance policy. Every time this plane would take off and land, it created a risk of accident and a liability to the district. As a district, accepting a risk of this catastrophic injury or loss of life to a student, district employee, or community member based upon the statutory cap liability was disappointing and unacceptable for our public school district. The loss of life or catastrophic injury would far exceed the $100,000 insurance coverage in emotional, physical, and reputation for the district. And I am glad, hopefully, that we will be voting to be selling the airplane.
Does that liability go away regardless of who the kids are flying with?
That's a good question, one that likely needs to be answered by legal counsel, but because we're in a partnership within the pattern, there's a good chance that it doesn't, but certainly I would recommend the board seek legal counsel on that.
Other questions?
I don't have a question, just a comment that I'm in agreement with Mrs. Lowry, just the liability, the risk, and the expense to the taxpayers and the children. So I'm in complete agreement with what Ms. Lowry said.
So considering that liability with legal counsel, if that's something that we have to look at regardless of who they're flying with, would your recommendation or proposal be to increase that insurance policy to cover more liability?
So the insurance policy would be held by in the pattern.
Okay.
And yeah, and then, we can certainly pull what their policy limits are and look at that as well.
Any other comments? Then I would entertain a motion to accept the recommendation from the Aviation Subcommittee and sell the district airplane in accordance with the Texas Education Code and Board policy with regard to selling property.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that we put the aircraft up for sale in accordance with the educational codes, and we go ahead and take a vote on that.
And I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Wimberly, second by Ms. Graff. Any further discussion? I do want to thank Mr. Wimberly, Ms. Townsend, and Ms. Graff for giving of their time, accepting the challenge of being a subcommittee of this board, and thank you for accepting that appointment. And at this time, we will vote on the motion. All in favor, show of hands. All opposed, same sign. Let the record show, vote 7-0, that we will sell the plane.
And trustees, I will get the information related to the questions asked by Ms. Gore.
Madam President, one thing before we go any further. This doesn't mean that we haven't finished putting together a policy that needs to be put together for using in the pattern. So this, as was said by Mr. Wimberly, we will continue the rest of this year under what we're doing, but next year there will be new prerequisites and aviation procedures for students going into the program. This does also, since it really wasn't mentioned at any time in here, there will be no pilots from GISD teaching students.
Thank you for the clarification, Ms. Townsend. Any other comments? Then we'll move to B, a discussion on the investigative findings from KBS report. Ms. Lowry.
Yes, ma'am. I read the KBS report over 4 or 5 different times, and I came up with some just information, some questions. To me, it produced more questions than it did answers. So I just have some comments here I'd like to read. The investigation by Miles T. Bradshaw, KBS Law Firm, was submitted on December 12th. The scope of the assignment was stated as follows. Review of the aviation program with a key focus on the use and operation of the district-owned airplane. I believe the stated scope of work was on the assignment was misdirected. The aviation program was not and is not in question. There's no question that the aviation program is a unique and valuable educational resource in the CTE program at GISD. The plane and its use by GISD staff were a very big concern for me and many members within the community. Principally, the concerns was the risk involved in GISD owning its own airplane versus the value of the airplane owned can provide to students, considering their viable other options that significantly reduce the overall risk. I'm very pleased that the board has voted to sell the airplane and discontinue the ownership by the district. The KBS investigative report of findings clearly identified GISD's executive staff and board's failure in defining and creating policies to administer the plane through the aviation program. GISD employees were free to determine on what was acceptable and what was not based upon their own opinion. The report determined the following. On page 3, the agency makes a statement that the employee otherwise carrying out his duties to fly the airplane. There is no official position description that clearly stated that the employee's duties included teaching, flying, or instruction on plane matters. Because this is not and was not clearly defined in his duties, it was simply left up to the employee to make this decision. Therefore, one can have the position that it was a stretch for the employee to fly the district-owned airplane in performance of his duties. Additionally, because the employee has no direct duties defined regarding his need to fly the airplane, it is not of value for the district to support or sponsor the employee's need to remain current with his PPL. Additionally, this loosely defined position description most likely places the employee in a high level of personal liability. Page 4, item 4, the author identified that the employee had a PPL beginning in 1998. Nowhere does the agency state or determine that the district sponsored or directed him to obtain his PPL. Furthermore, in item 4, the author states that the employee remained involved in the program to promote it with the students, parents, and community, including the discovery flights and keeping his PPL current in order to do so legally and proficiently. Nowhere does this investigation identify that the employee had written directives or responsibilities to do so other than him performing this function. Therefore, the employee had no benefit to the district to remain current other than for his own benefit and to fly the district plane. The numbers are certainly worth considering on how the GISD plane was utilized, when it was utilized, and by whom. It appears from the investigative findings that the GISD plane has made 136 flights since it was purchased. It should be noted that each and every one of these 136 flights had placed GISD in a risk of liability. By the numbers listed on page 13 of the report, the employee made 17 flights since May 6th. I would question whether these 17 flights qualified that employee as being proficient to be flying students and staff and putting us at risk. According to the investigative report, unidentified CFI pilots flew the GISD plane 82 times, 48 aviate the lake, 20 in the pattern, and 14 by a parent instructor, which is located on page 13 and 15. It is noted that the agency did not interview these CFIs to determine their involvement, cost savings to them, and more importantly, verify their CFI certifications. It does not appear the CFI pilots' licenses were verified by anyone and that their certification was valid. Some of these CFI pilots were not listed on the insurance coverage. On page 19, item 46, the investigator referred to the employee authorized or encouraged, albeit loosely. Page 20, item 49, employee was given fairly broad authority to fly the plane. No documents were provided by the agency showing this authorization was made, or was any of this authorization in writing or codified in any way. The agency investigative report made a reference to the employee duties to fly, but the GISD duty is assumed under other duties as assigned, which in my opinion is not sufficient for this level of responsibility. I have placed and will place a more detailed report on my Facebook campaign page if anybody is interested in reading anything else. A lesson learned, I think, through this plain experience is that GISD must create detailed written policies before programs are implemented into service, and especially when a program involves high-value equipment and creates a high risk for the program.
Do you have a motion of any kind, Ms.?
It's not an action item, Dr. Harrington. Oh,
It is an action item.
I was also originally going to ask for a vote to sale of the airplane, but we'd already done that.
Thank you. Any other comments with regard to the investigative findings from the KBS? Thank you, Ms. Lowry. That concludes our discussion and action, and we'll move to the reports. Mr. Whitefield.
Thank you, Madam President. Board, in front of you, you have the financial statements for the period ending December 31st of 2022. This statement includes those transactions that occurred between the period of September 1st and December 31st, 2022. You can see in your on your financials that revenue collected to date equals 33.71% of the budgeted amount compared to 36.72% in 21 and 22. The expenditures to date represent 39.58% of the budget as compared to 33.3% in 21-22. The notable transactions that you'll see on there under expenditures is going to fall under transportation, though there is a little bit of a discrepancy there. We monitor fuel prices daily, and we have purchased a couple of buses, and they're not in, but they are on POs, so they are included in your financials. That's the discrepancy that probably sticks out the most in those financials, and I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any on those financials.
Are there any questions? Thank you, Mr. Whitefield. Moving right on to your next item.
Thank you, Madam President. Board, in front of you, you'd have your cash flow and investment report for the month ending December 31st, 2022. You can see that our investments are producing an investment income this year that substantially is larger than it was last year. Those rates have increased over 2022. You can, and my memo there, you can see that they did increase the interest rates several times. That was lucrative for us in this year. We did make an amendment at a meeting 2 meetings ago to increase our budget for that because we are receiving more interest this year, and we're keeping an eye on that to see what those interest rates will do and how much we're going to actually receive this year. And you can see that for the month of December, we did actually get $103,000 in interest on our investments.
been a long time since we've seen those kind of numbers.
Yes, sir.
Of course, the other side of that coin is if trying to buy a house these days.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Whitefield. Little Buccaneers, GISD Staff Child Care Center update. Ms. Rodriguez and Ms. Middlebrook. Hello, ladies.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. We are here to bring you some happy, I guess, to wrap up the meeting. Little Buccaneers has been open for 3 years now. This is our 3rd year open, and it has been fantastic, phenomenal. We just want to give you a little update. Of course, we have lots of pictures because there's lots of cuteness there. Feel free to stop by and see your kiddos. I'm going to let Carly talk a little bit about Texas Rising Star, which is something that we've done this year.
We are extremely proud to announce that we are a 4-star Texas Rising Star Center. There are 4 different categories that we were assessed on, starting with the director and staff qualifications and training, along with teacher-child interactions, program administration, indoor and outdoor environments. And we set out with a goal of becoming a TRS center by the end of this year, so May of 2023. And because our staff is so incredible, we actually achieved our goal in November of 2022. And a 4-star rating is the highest rating possible. We'll attain that for the next 3 years at least.
Wonderful.
Some other really great things happening at Little Bucks. We've begun implementing Frog Street curriculum that we've gotten really great feedback from our families as well as our teachers and staff on. We are in the middle of our Book Buddies program. We've partnered up with the 4th grade class, Miss Olschick's class at AES. They come over and read with our 3-year-olds every other week, and it's amazing. They've developed some really great relationships through that. We've also increased our family involvement this year. We've had a grandparent day, we have had a parent day, and we have our first annual sweetheart dance coming up next month. And we've also received our very first GEF grant.
And just a little bit about enrollment. We currently are serving 62 children, but we have several more infants that we're expecting by the end of the year. Our infant room is actually waitlisted until next year. We already have our spots full for next year. Our 2- and 3-year-old room is becoming very full. So the center is just growing. We could really use a second location if, that comes up in chats or anything like that. I do know, having something on this side of town would definitely be really beneficial for like our Mambrino, Bronner, Emma families. And so just something to throw out there. And then I guess go ahead to the next one. We have the world's best staff. We have to brag on them. I mean, they truly have hearts of gold, and they come in there every day and work with those little kiddos, and they enjoy what they do, and you come in and just see smiles on their faces all the time. There's 15 staff members at the center. Our teacher turnover is extremely low. We've lost a couple of teachers, but some of them actually went into positions in the district. Teacher turnover is really high right now in childcare, so for us to keep our teachers has been really good. We attribute that to just building relationships with our staff, making connections, and in turn they do that with their children in their classroom. So Little Bucks is a very happy place to be. It's always a good day at Little Bucks.
That's right.
That's all we have for you. Just a quick update. Any questions?
Any questions or comments?
I'll just make a comment. I mean, Carly and Tiffany are a dream team. When this vision became a reality, I mean, they just took the ball and ran with it. And it's been great to watch it flourish. It is a cost-neutral program, so our basically it's funded and supported by our parents. So the teachers that work in the district, they pay a tuition to keep it going. And yeah, and we try and keep it as low as possible. We're not looking to make a profit on it. But one thing I will say, just the vision behind it was to retain teachers. And I know there are teachers that stay in this district because they know their kids are cared for and loved and taken care of at Little Bucks. So thank you guys for what you do.
Thank you.
At this time, we will act on items discussed in closed session. There was a retirement. We do not have to act on that. The catastrophic leave is an item upon which we need to act. We also did Dr. Glenn's formative evaluation tonight. When we were in executive session. We do that every year in January, look at the goals and that we set with them at the beginning of the year and sort of talk about where we are midterm. We will do his formal and his summative evaluation in June when his contract will be considered. But that is not an action item tonight. The only action item is the catastrophic leave. Dr. Glenn.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I want to thank Wes Jones and our HR department for preparing all of the staff recommendations. And as far as the staff recommendations report, there are only 2 items. One was a retirement that the board can go ahead and accept tonight, and the second was approval of the catastrophic leave second request. And it is our recommendation that you approve both under the staffing report as presented.
I move that we accept the staffing report as presented.
And I'll second.
A motion by Ms. Gore and a second by Mr. Moore. Making a point here. It's been a long night. Any discussion? Do I have a vote? Raise your right hand for. Again, same sign. Let the record show 7-0. Thank each and every one of you for taking the time. You didn't have to give your time to come here tonight. We thank you for coming tonight, participating in the board. And with that, we are adjourned at 8 o'clock.